Could you survive childbirth with no doctor, no medicine, and no way out? Be honest. Right now, today, if something goes wrong during birth, you call 911. A team is there in minutes. Machines watch every heartbeat. But what if none of that existed? What if the only thing standing between you and death was a woman next to you holding your hand and hoping for the best? That was not some rare horror story. That was every single birth for 300,000 years. And the truth is so much darker than what you've been told. You've probably pictured a cave woman giving birth calmly under a tree, maybe with a few herbs, and walking away fine an hour later. Forget that picture. Burn it. The real version is closer to a slow-motion nightmare that could last for days, where the odds of walking away alive were not in her favor. Today we're going inside what childbirth actually looked like before hospitals existed, the parts nobody wants to show you, and by the end, you'll understand why ancient women feared labor more than almost anything else on earth. Here's the first thing that should scare you. Your body was never built to make this easy. A long time ago, humans started walking on two legs instead of four. To do that well, our hips had to get narrower, but at the exact same time, something else was happening. Our brains were getting bigger, and bigger brains mean bigger heads. So think about that for 1 second. The doorway got smaller while the thing trying to fit through it got bigger. Scientists actually have a name for this. They call it the obstetrical dilemma, which is a polite way of saying the human body has a serious design problem. A baby's head is almost exactly the same size as the space it has to pass through. There is barely any room for error. Compare that to a chimpanzee. Their babies slide out easily, with space to spare. Ours don't. Every birth, even today, with all our medicine, is still a tight, dangerous squeeze. Now imagine that same tight squeeze, but with zero help. Picture this happening 50,000 years ago. A woman goes into labor. There is no scan to check if the baby is sitting the right way. No one can tell how far along she is. No clock telling anyone how much time is too much time. If the baby's head doesn't line up perfectly, or the baby is turned the wrong way, labor doesn't just get harder, it gets stuck. And a stuck labor is one of the most brutal things a human body can go through. The pain doesn't pause. It keeps building, hour after hour, as her body keeps trying and failing to finish what it started. This could go on for 1 day, 2 days, sometimes longer than that, and every single hour that passed made things more dangerous, not less. Now here's the part that should genuinely disturb you, because almost nobody explains it like this. When a baby gets stuck and can't move down, the pressure has to go somewhere. It gets crushed between the baby's skull and the mother's pelvic bone, squeezing the soft tissue in between like a vice. That tissue starts to lose blood flow and starts to die. If she survives the labor itself, she can be left with permanent damage, a hole forming inside her body where one should never exist, connecting parts that were never meant to touch. Doctors today call this an obstetric fistula. It still happens to women right now in places without emergency surgery, and it causes nonstop leaking and infection for the rest of their lives. In the ancient world, this was actually one of the better outcomes, because the worst outcome was still coming. If labor stayed stuck too long, the uterus itself could literally tear open. That's called uterine rupture, and the second it happens, she is bleeding inside her own body with absolutely no way to stop it. No IV, no blood transfusion, no surgeon running in. Bleeding to death after childbirth was one of the biggest killers of women in all of human history, and it could happen fast. This is exactly why ancient midwives watched new mothers like hawks after birth, pressing on their stomachs, forcing certain plants into their mouths, doing anything they could the second they saw too much blood. Sometimes it worked, often it didn't. Then there's the one word that probably terrified every midwife who ever lived: breech. That means the baby is coming out feet first or bottom first instead of head first. Today, doctors just schedule a safe surgery for this. Back then, it was a death sentence waiting to happen. If the baby's body came out but the head got stuck behind the bone, there were only a few minutes before the baby suffocated, the cord squeezed shut between two things that weren't moving. The midwife had to reach inside, find a leg by feel alone, and try to turn the baby around in complete darkness, using nothing but memory from every other birth she'd ever seen go wrong. Sometimes she saved the baby. Sometimes she saved the mother. Sometimes she saved neither, and the whole group grieved together. And even if the birth itself somehow went fine, the danger wasn't over. There was no clean room to recover in. She stayed on the same ground where she just gave birth, exposed, with any small tear in her body wide open to infection, because nobody understood germs yet. This kind of infection, what we now call childbirth fever, could kill a woman days later, after everyone already thought she was safe. She'd survived the worst part only to die from something invisible, while everyone around her believed she'd been cursed. This is why the numbers are so terrifying. Experts believe that for most of human history, the chances of a woman dying from childbirth were close to the worst maternal death rates seen anywhere on Earth today. Every single pregnancy was a real gamble with her life. And it wasn't some distant fear. It was personal. Every woman had seen someone die this way. A sister, a mother, a best friend. Nobody pretended birth was safe, because everybody had watched it not be safe. Which is exactly why surviving it wasn't treated as normal. It was treated as beating odds that had already killed people they loved. This terror is also exactly why midwives were treated like the most important people in the entire tribe. Not because birth was peaceful and they made it nicer. Because birth was a battle and they were the only ones who knew how to fight it. Everything they knew came from watching bodies fail in every horrible way possible and trying anything to stop it. And none of it was ever written down. It lived only in their hands and their memory, passed from one woman to the next, generation after generation, with everything at stake every single time. So next time you picture ancient childbirth, don't picture peace. Picture hours, sometimes days, of pain with absolutely no exit, no clock, and no backup plan. Picture injuries that could last a lifetime, bleeding that nothing could stop, and babies stuck in positions that could cost one life or both. Every single birth in your family line, stretching back tens of thousands of years, beat odds that should have ended in tragedy. You are here because somewhere down that chain, every single time, her body held on, or the midwife knew exactly what to do, or pure luck stepped in at the last second. That is not a peaceful origin story. That is a horror story with a happy ending repeated millions of times for 300,000 years, just so you could exist at all.